The internet is freaking out about AJ Dybantsa for good reason. Lottery night was ugly. Memphis gets announced at number 3, which means the top 2 is down to Washington and Utah. AJ emerged as the top pick this year and now might get drafted by his adopted home. Kid chose Utah for high school, then shocked everyone by staying for college. Now he stays in the NBA? This is like a movie script. LeBron picked by his hometown Cleveland. But the card flips and Washington gets the top pick. Camera cuts to AJ and his face says it all. Dream crushed. He does not want to go there. Bro's face said, yeah, I'd rather stay in college. But it got worse. A Wizards reporter asked him, hey AJ, how do you like DC?
AJ, what was your reaction when the Wizards got the #1 pick?
What? What was that pause? His face was like, I gotta think of something to say here, this sucks. This guy's like, yeah, AJ can't wait to be a Wizard. So yes, he probably isn't psyched. But here's the deal. This only matters if either A, AJ is willing to make things really uncomfortable, or B, the Jazz are willing to pony up in a big trade because the price will be high. But for fun, the other day, I was looking at the very first AM Hoops video. 2019, just before the pandemic. Fun fact, I am wearing TV makeup in that video because I was so used to being on actual TV. A little embarrassing, but in reality, I was stressed at that time, going from TV to YouTube, not knowing if it would work out. And one thing that helped me get through it was therapy. So I want to give today's sponsor, BetterHelp, a huge shout out because BetterHelp makes starting therapy easier. That was one of my biggest roadblocks. You just take a quiz, get matched with a licensed therapist quickly, communicate however you feel comfortable, phone, video, or text. Switch anytime at no extra cost if it's not the right fit. That is a lot easier to do online than in person, trust me. There's over 6 million people to date who have gotten help through BetterHelp, earning a 4.8 out of 5 rating on the App Store. So click the link in the description or go to betterhelp.com/amhoops and get 10% off your first month of therapy. So let's investigate that lottery moment. It was AJ's reaction that set off this entire meltdown in the first place. But do you remember last year? There was a similar moment with Cooper Flagg. The Mavericks jumped all the way to #1, and Coop did not look happy. People were freaking out back then too, but Cooper explained what actually happened in that moment.
The lottery, like my agent's talking to me and they're like, whatever you do, just don't react to anything. I'm not gonna say cities, but if it's somewhere I didn't want to go, like just don't act upset. And so like people say from my reaction, like I didn't look happy, and I was like, I was trying to not react in any way and just kind of be stoic.
That makes sense. And when you look back at AJ, he doesn't actually look bummed, he looks neutral. Or at least like a 19-year-old kid who's been told to look neutral on live TV. But that completely ignores the situation. AJ's entire family lives in Utah. He might be the first top pick ever to want to be a Jazz. And the Wizards are like being drafted to a basketball wasteland. If you compare everything about the Wizards and the Jazz, it's no contest. The front office, Utah has Danny Ainge, who is a Hall of Fame level executive. Man who built the 08 champion Celtics, drafted Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. So the Jazz have a title-winning man in charge. The Wizards have Michael Winger and Will Dawkins, who have good reputations, but have so far done nothing in DC. And the coach? Utah has Will Hardy, who is considered one of the best up-and-coming coaches in the NBA from the Greg Popovich tree. The Wizards have Brian Keefe. Who? Exactly. But you do know the names of the players, which is not a good thing. You're telling me AJ Dybantsa wants to play with Trae Young and Anthony Davis? That is like the top 2 of the most unreliable, unideal teammates in the world. AD cannot stay healthy, and Trae Young, let's just say the Hawks' record and locker room took off right when he left. Reports say AD doesn't even want to be a Wizard. Chris Haynes reports AD wants to win MVPs and championships, which are not on DC's timeline. Meanwhile, Jazz have Lauri Markkanen, Triple J, who aren't perfect, but zero drama compared to those other guys. So it is no contest, and sure enough, CBS Sports confirms AJ prefers Utah. But will he make things uncomfortable? This only matters if he pulls an Ace Bailey. Last year, Ace wanted to be a Wizard so bad, or at least his manager did, that he was refusing workouts left and right. Canceled a flight to Philly last minute, which gave him the Diva tag around the league. And teams don't want to draft a kid who's going to be unhappy, unless you're the Jazz. Because Utah drafted Ace anyway, and denied the Wizards the player they really wanted. So this could be a chance for DC to get revenge on the Jazz just 1 year later. But is AJ even willing to do a full Ace Bailey? Well, CBS Sports reports from the Combine, quote, those whispers have quieted down a bit as AJ Dybantsa's camp has reportedly indicated to some that they were not interested in playing that game, despite their preference to end up in Utah. So even if his face said, this sucks, he is not going to force anything. But what about a trade? Because we know Jazz owner Ryan Smith loves Dybantsa. He's a BYU booster, and you can't deny that AJ wanting to be a Jazz is really rare, and they should take advantage of that. Well, Jake Fisher says the burning question now is whether Utah can still find a pathway to Dybantsa, and there just might be one. Wizards president Michael Winger told me directly that the Wizards will at least consider trading down. And Jazz owner Ryan Smith said, hey, I think the next 40 days are gonna see some madness in the NBA. It might or might not be with us. Oh, it's happening. But is it? That all depends on the price. What would the Jazz be willing to trade to get AJ Dybantsa? Well, there's actually a history of trading up this high in the draft recently. Like in 2017, the Sixers traded up from 3 to 1. They got the number 1 pick for a kid named Markelle Fultz. And the Celtics got the number 3 pick, a kid named Jason Tatum, and a protected 2018 first. Or in 2018, Mavericks trade up to 3 for a guy named Luka. The Hawks get a guy named Trae Young at 5 and a protected pick. So in recent history, the price is 1 protected first. But is that what the Wizards want? We don't know. Now, the internet says the price should be Wizards get number 2 and Ace Bailey for number 1. But that is way too steep a price because this is not like a Victor Wembanyama draft. Okay, AJ is not head and shoulders better than the rest of the field. In fact, some experts say this is a sneaky good thing for Utah. There would have been a ton of pressure on them to pick AJ at number 1, but it turns out Darren Peterson is a much better fit for their roster. They already have Lauri Markkanen, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Walker Kessler. They don't need another forward wing big. They need a guard like Peterson. So that's the whole story. Yes, his face might have been bummed. His preference is to stay in Utah, but AJ's not gonna force anything. The trade is possible, but only if Washington takes a super low price. Anyone telling you they're giving up Ace Bailey or a ton of picks is lying. So my prediction is AJ ends up a Wizard. And the internet moves on to the next thing to over-exaggerate, just like they did with Ace Bailey or Cooper Flagg in this exact situation. But I've got to be honest about this video. I was like, oh, this is gonna be a fun video. AJ Dybantsa, forced his way out. And then I pretty quickly realized, the whole story is overblown. Everyone was freaking out about his face. And then I found the Cooper Flagg quote where he says, I was told to be neutral. I'm like, okay, that's the whole story, right? But then I saw this video from this kid who I guess covers the Wizards on the internet. I'm not gonna play the whole thing, but
it's not a conspiracy that AJ Dybantsa was visibly devastated when the Wizards got the number 1 pick because he feels bad for what they're about to do to the rest of the league. Have y'all taken a second to realize what's really happening right now? It's pretty clear the pick is going to be AJ Dybantsa, 61% odds on Kalshi to go number 1. So the Wizards will be led by Trae Young and Anthony Davis, 14 combined All-Star appearances. Now add in Trey Johnson and Will Riley, the most underrated rookie duo in the entire NBA last season. Throw in Alex Sarr, the 7'1" former number 2 overall pick who's entering year 3 and showed a lot of improvement.
Okay, the whole time I'm waiting for him to say it's a joke. He's like, and showed improvement. I don't know if he's serious. There is zero chance that AJ Dybantsa looked bummed because he felt bad for the rest of the league. And then he goes on to talk about Trae Young and Anthony Davis have 14 All-Star appearances between them. Like that means anything. Anyone who watches the game knows that you can be an All-Star and be overrated, or you can come with a lot of baggage. And, I think that playing with Trae Young has proven to be a headache for a lot of guys. I wouldn't be surprised if Trae feels a certain type of way with AJ getting all the spotlight. And then Anthony Davis reportedly doesn't want to be there. Having 14 All-Stars doesn't mean anything. I'm going to leave AD aside. If having Trae Young meant winning, then the Hawks would have been doing a lot of winning. Instead, they had a lot of like 40-win seasons, and they were making the play-in, except for that one year where they went to the conference finals, and it was kind of fluky, right? So that, when I saw that, I was like, this is the most insane thing ever. So I decided to make the video anyway to try to explain what I think really happened. Now, there's one other story about the draft that I couldn't fit into this video, but I think is worth talking about. So Darren Peterson, right? He was supposed to be the number 1 pick, and then he falls, I guess, to number 2. But it sounds like he could fall even further because of this medical thing. So he had full body cramps during the season, which sent him to the hospital. And he said, I thought I was going to die. That's how bad it was, right? And then he comes out and says, oh, it's because I was taking too much creatine. Now, there's a lot of red flags. And if you go on the internet, you see a lot of doctors saying that doesn't add up. Dr. Brian Suterer said, and he talks about sports medicine all the time on YouTube and Twitter. He said, when I heard that, I thought there's got to be more to the story. And in fact, if you were a medical expert and you were looking at what could cause this, creatine would be at the very bottom of the list, and it'd be a bunch of other stuff, right? So it sounds fishy, and the timing was weird because Darren leaked this or gave this interview to Ramona Shelburne, ESPN, 2 days before the draft combine. What happens at the draft combine? You're out there performing athletically for every team, and you're doing interviews. You're talking to everyone. So he wanted to quash the story and control the narrative just before the draft combine. Everything feels too convenient. And so if it's not solved, he wanted it to be solved, because if he had a mystery illness or a mystery condition, that could see Darren Peterson fall 2, 3, 5, 6 to who knows, right? Like, do you remember Michael Porter Jr.? And I think it was like the 2019 draft. He was supposed to be the number 1 overall pick, but he fell to 14. Maybe he wasn't going to be number 1 by the time the draft came around, but he was supposed to be top 3, top 5. He fell all the way to 14 because of his back issue that wasn't fully resolved. And what ended up happening, it was great, right? Because his back issue hasn't been a huge deal for him in the NBA, and the Nuggets got a lot of value. Now, they ended up overpaying for that value by giving him a max contract and then had to trade him, and it was stupid, right? But so, Darren Peterson didn't want that, so he threw out the creatine thing, okay? But upon listening to other sort of doctors on the internet, it sounds more like he had this thing called rhabdomyolysis, which is where your body just gets way too overwhelmed from a big strenuous workout, and you have these full body cramps, and you have to go to the hospital, and you have to receive a lot of IV fluids. And you could die if you don't get treatment, because your kidneys get blocked up and you die, right? And so rhabdo, very serious. And so why would he have said creatine? Because when you have rhabdo, you have something called creatine kinase levels that are super elevated. And so these doctors online, and obviously I'm not a doctor, I'm just telling you what I heard, but it kind of makes all the pieces fit together, because the creatine excuse made no sense from Darren Peterson. And when these people say must have meant creatine kinase levels were high. Creatine kinase levels are super high while you're experiencing rhabdo, and this full body cramping happened after I think 2-week long or 2-day long, whatever it was, super intense camp at Kansas where they were going hard. And if he didn't have enough fluids, didn't have enough carbs, whatever, he could have experienced rhabdo. So he just mistook it, saying creatine kinase, whatever, and he told Ramona Shelburne that. And so the kid's going to stop taking creatine. But, another thing was that Brian Suterer said, if he had rhabdo, dude, that is so serious. Like, one of your players might have died. And that the training staff at Kansas could be on the hook for that. He said, because first of all, it means there could have been signs that you missed before he went into this rhabdo thing, the full body cramps. And as a training staff, how did you miss that? You should have given him more fluids. You should have given him more carbs. And that could seriously hurt Kansas as a program. So they don't want to get it out. So when the kid goes out, tells ESPN it was just creatine, Kansas sitting back there knows the real story. And they're like, yeah, it was creatine. It wasn't our fault. So there's like a whole nother conspiracy going on there. But the good news is that if it's not a mystery illness, then Darren Peterson shouldn't fall to 2, 3, 5, 6, 10, whatever. And that it might have just been rhabdo from Kansas. The more I talk about this, it is kind of a mystery, because I don't know what the answer is, and I darn sure don't think creatine was the answer. So that, this whole AJ Dybantsa thing could be the fake controversy and the fake scandal of the draft. But I think the Darren Peterson thing could be the real controversy and scandal of the draft. If he falls from 1 to 2 to like 10 or something, or 6 with the Nets, because the Nets couldn't pass that up, That would be a gigantic story. Anyway, so a lot of fun. I just think that the media kind of overblew a little bit with the AJ Dybantsa stuff. Hey, check out our last video. I do so many videos, I can't remember what it was. But we did react to the lottery because this wasn't the only story. The Pacers absolutely got screwed.